I think there's a little bit of a distinction there. Anytime you're taking money for something, there's an expectation there. So I would say if you're interested in building something, try as hard as you can to not create a token for it, because no one's going to call you a scammer if you didn't take anybody's money and you were just trying to build something cool, right? I would say don't be discouraged if nobody uses it. I mean, I built plenty of things that nobody cared about and nobody used. You build it because you're interested in it, and it's interesting enough to other people there, they'll use it. And it's kind of like, in a way, it's better for it not to go kind of crazy right away, and then you kind of like lose control, and it's better to kind of start slow and build. I'm really happy the way when Rare Pepe Wallet, in that it was this kind of slow build.
A legend is in the building today. I'm finally sitting with what is known as the godfather of Rare Pepes, the creator of the Rare Pepe Wallet, Joe Looney himself, one of the original Rare Pepe Scientists, and still one of the leaders in the Bitcoin NFT ecosystem. So a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of stuff to celebrate. Joe, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Truly an honor. I had looked through YouTube for a bunch of podcasts of yourself to kind of go reference. I know you go on Twitter Spaces. Not many podcasts out there of Joe Looney himself. I know you've been building Frogland for a long time, and Twitter Spaces are probably a little bit more convenient.
Yeah, I mean, I did a few years back, but yeah, nothing too recent probably.
It's a lot to catch up on. So Joe, first, yeah, appreciate you for coming on. Most people know you for Rare Pepes, but what a lot of people don't know about you is what you did before crypto. I know you've been in the Bitcoin space pretty much since Counterparty started. Did you do anything in crypto before getting into Counterparty? And then kind of what is your background before even crypto in general?
Sure. I would say I got into, I learned about Bitcoin spring of 2013. So kind of right before the run up to like 260 and there's like a banking crisis in Cyprus or something like that, if I remember correctly. So it was just under $100, and then I watched it. I remember I bought some and I watched it go up to 260 and thought I was a genius, and then it crashed back down to 100. And yeah, no, I've been in Bitcoin since then. I don't think I like dabbled in like web. So let's go back a little bit, and I guess it'll make some more sense. So I was like, growing up, I was kind of like the kid that like knew how to use computers and make websites and stuff. And I remember in like kind of like late 90s, early 2000s, like the way you got like a website made was you just like found some kid that knew how to do it. And so I put the website together for like the company my mom worked for, and did a bunch of stuff like that. And then as I got through high school and towards the end of high school, I decided to kind of go a different route. And I went to college for mechanical engineering, and did that up until full time, up until a year or so ago, when I went like full time crypto. Yeah, so I kind of come at it from, I did a lot of kind of like systems engineering and stuff. So like mechanical, physical systems. So I kind of like look at these kind of like software networks and stuff from kind of a different perspective than a lot of people coming straight from like the computer science software world. So yeah, Bitcoin is kind of what brought me back into software development. It's something it's kind of always been a passion of mine anyway, but I wasn't doing it as a job. So yeah, found out about Bitcoin, and it's like, cool, there's money on the internet. Now I can like build cool like web apps and stuff that kind of utilize this kind of open public network. And I remember the first, I made a website in 2013, that was a sports book. So you could create your own sports book and your own betting lines and it just referenced like public, I think it was blockchain.info at the time. And we used it to bet on fantasy football. Like I used it with my friends to bet on fantasy football. Of course, they didn't have Bitcoin, so I had to send them Bitcoin to then use to bet. So basically, if I didn't win every bet, I was down in Bitcoin. But then Counterparty came out, and I kind of got sucked into that and started building stuff around that in 2014, and really never stopped.
So as you entered crypto in 2013, and it sounds like you immediately moved into it full time, as you kind of saw like this like new oasis. Did it feel like you had stumbled across something that was going to could potentially change the future of finance, or even like the reshape kind of how humans connect with each other online? Did it feel like that when you were moving into that, as somebody who's moved into it full time in 2013, where there probably was not much infrastructure to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, I would say full time in my free time, right? It was a full time hobby, let's say, up until it became an actual job more recently. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of, once I realized what it was, I looked into it a little bit. I remember I followed a ticker on Twitter. It was just like it would tweet the Bitcoin price. And I think I followed that in like 2011, 2012. And I remember I had no idea what it was, but this was this like funny thing that was like tweeting the price of funny internet money. So, and I remember watching that start to go up, and that was like, oh, I better actually look into like seeing what this thing is. And then once I looked into it, that was kind of like the stereotypical down the rabbit hole. And yeah, it was this kind of this crazy thing that I'd never seen before. Yeah, it's just super fascinating, and kind of, I don't know as far as like thinking it will change the world or anything, but it's just kind of like this crazy new technology that, as long as it continued to work, it was gonna pull more people into it. And so it made sense to kind of get into it when I saw it, rather than kind of tangentially. But yeah, I think we're still seeing this weird kind of like evolution of what crypto is and what it can be, and kind of still surprises me from like week to week.
Yeah, we go back and forth from it's just a degen casino to it's going to revolutionize finance to it's going to bring third world countries out of poverty to fuck, this is just a degen casino. And it just goes back and forth in this like trifecta. And we'll get to some of the newer developments. But now kind of moving into Rare Pepes, this is where, this is what you're mostly known for, and a bunch of notable things that you've done there. Take us through kind of the early, I guess you could say the early gathering of the Pepe community. From my understanding, the handful of the early Rare Pepe Scientists were kind of familiar with each other somewhat before that group had started. And from Rare Pepe 2016 to getting into Counterparty in 2014, take us through what Joe Looney was doing on Counterparty during that time before that the magical frog moment, per se.
Yeah, so I got really into Counterparty, and in 2014, and just thought it was this really cool platform. You could make your own tokens. You could call them whatever you want. You could create as many issuance, and they kind of inherit this the kind of immutable characteristics from Bitcoin itself. So prior to that, I remember trying to like create, like, the first thing you do when you get into crypto, first thing you do, at least 2013, first thing you try to do is mine, right? It was like, okay, I'm going to mine this free money. I just need to run my computer and mine. And then you quickly figure out that, okay, this isn't like tenable. It's fun, but you're not really going to make much money unless you like really go full bore into it. And then the next thing after that is make a shitcoin. Like that's like kind of like the road. So, but that there really wasn't an easy way to do that. And it didn't make a lot of sense. Like you'd have to create your own network. You'd have to, I mean, I was looking at it as just something to play around with. So when Counterparty came out, it was all of a sudden, it's like, oh, here's this thing I can create these tokens on these platform that just lives on Bitcoin. You don't have to recreate a network per se. And you can just experiment and kind of play around with tokens that way. So, got into it. And this at the same time, there was a podcast called Let's Talk Bitcoin that was kind of like the biggest Bitcoin podcast around at the time. That's kind of where Andreas Antonopoulos kind of first kind of got noticed and became the kind of like Bitcoin Sherpa for a lot of people. And but Adam Levine, it was the host of that, he was really into Counterparty too. So he was experimenting with Counterparty tokens with the Let's Talk Bitcoin kind of platform, and they had their own forums and kind of community. So that was really where I'd say I first like really dove into like a community of people that were working on things together. And in 2015, I actually built a Chrome extension wallet for Counterparty. And it's funny because I used CryptoKit, which was that was Anthony Diorio, who's like one of the original investors in Ethereum. And it was the first Chrome extension I had ever even seen. I didn't know what Chrome extensions really were prior to that. And I remember I used his code base, and then it ended up being an issue. I guess it wasn't open source or something. And so I was like, fine, I'll just build my own thing. So yeah, I ended up building a Chrome extension, which is funny because at the time people weren't like that into Chrome extensions, because you get that like warning that it can read all the information on all the websites you go to, and nobody wanted to do it. So we I'd say that within the Let's Talk Bitcoin community, there was like probably maybe a couple hundred people at most were using it, but it was a great learning experience building that out. And I kind of got really into just like building wallets because I think that's kind of something that's really overlooked and it's even still in the crypto space. And it's like, that's the interface from human to computer, right? It's like, that's how everybody interacts with crypto, yet everyone just kind of like, it's like, oh, fine, we'll just use the one that's there. It's like, so one of the things I was really interested in was application specific wallets, where you would have, instead of having this general purpose wallet that you did everything with, you would have a wallet specific to whatever the application was that you were using it with. And it made a lot of sense with Counterparty because specific applications might use their own token, or, this was pre NFTs, right? So people were looking at tokens more as like in the kind of like shitcoin perspective, like high issuance currency use case, rather than this like collectible lower issuance thing. So I built a wallet. It was called the Let's Talk Bitcoin Companion Wallet. And what it let you do, it integrated with letstalkbitcoin.com. And when you'd scroll down and look at all the different like podcasts and articles people would write, it would show a little button on there if you had the Chrome extension installed. And when you clicked on the button, you could tip that person, the author or the podcaster, and then they could specify which tokens they wanted to be tipped in. And then it would kind of open up a thing on your wallet, and it would allow you to select from those tokens, and you could send a tip directly to them. So it worked really well. If you look on YouTube, you can even find like old Adam did a lot of like tutorial videos of that old wallet, and then it turned into Tokenly Pockets. It kind of evolved into that. And then, so that was 2015 into probably early 2016. And it was like the summer of 2016. I kind of like, so Spells of Genesis, which I'm sure anyone listening to this is probably familiar with. They were like the first trading card NFTs. And they were on Counterparty. But I wasn't like that into them. I don't know. To me, it didn't like click that this was a like interesting use case for tokens. And then I think the more the more I kind of saw that was like the major activity on Counterparty was people like trading Spells of Genesis tokens, and Forces of Will was another one that came out after that, another trading card. And so I summer of 2016, I kind of like accepted. I was like, oh, maybe this is like a cool like use case. Like the people clearly like value them, they're trading them, and so I built a wallet over the summer that was a web app rather than a Chrome extension, and it was for basically buying and selling these trading cards. So Spells of Genesis, Forces of Will, and any other tokens really. And so I finished that like the end of the summer, and then September 2016 was when Mike came in, the notorious Mike dropping the Nakamoto card and the shitcoin card in the Counterparty chat. And that was kind of like a real light bulb moment for me. That was like, oh, these things are cool as trading cards, but it's even cooler if you can like make your own and then trade those. And being someone that had already built a couple wallets for specific applications, okay, here's a perfect use case for a specific application, like an application specific wallet, just for Rare Pepes. You can just have this Rare Pepe wallet, which was what it ended up being called. And I basically just reskinned the wallet I had created a couple months before. So it was just perfect timing. And as far as like being familiar with people in the space, Sean, I knew Sean prior to Rare Pepes just from chats that we were both in. So I knew who he was. And yeah, I think I didn't know Theo or Mike. J-Dog, I knew just because he was another developer in the space, and I'd have to kind of work with him with the APIs pulling from his Block Explorer and stuff like that. But yeah, it was kind of just this perfect timed moment that we were in the kind of depths of a bear market, almost kind of how we are now. And he just kind of dropped this thing, and it was this aha moment for a whole lot of people, especially people that were familiar with Spells of Genesis, because really no one had just, I mean, there were these little kind of like one-off experiments and stuff, but no one had really just created like their own really trading cards as kind of like art. And one of the cool things was they were very like self-referential. So like shitcoin card. And it was really just like, we're in the depths of a bear market and we're kind of mocking these projects that were going to like change the world. That's like Pepe Nation, which was like Bit Nation. And so a lot of those early series cards are really like self-referential to crypto, and kind of just making fun of like all the other like wacky projects in the space. And it just kind of, I think it really was that kind of like watershed moment for a lot of people, where it's like, oh, this is a fun thing we can do with our Bitcoin and with if we're using Counterparty and XCP. This is like, here's this fun thing we can do with this. You can make your own, so then you can sell. So a lot of people were doing early on is you're just making Pepes to sell, to get more XCP, to buy more Pepes. So, I mean, that's what I did. That's what I still do. I can't hold on to any of that stuff. I just have to go and buy more Pepes. So, but yeah, it was just timing. I mean, like what we've seen with like all the craziness this year with ordinals and all this stuff. It's like timing is everything for this thing. It's like you could have the best idea in the world, but if the market and people just aren't ready for it, it just kind of doesn't take off. But Rare Pepes, I think, just really hit the mark, and that like late 2016, people were really ready for something different and something kind of like this new idea of you could just collect tokens rather than like prior to that, they were really just like these throwaway things for like maybe a specific function. Like I remember there's a lot of ideas to use tokens as like tickets and use tokens as maybe a coupon or something like that. Like it, so the idea of holding on to it as a collectible really wasn't there really prior to like Spells of Genesis. And then once Rare Pepes came out, and the idea of, oh, you can make your own, and you don't need to just wait for some company to come around to create a bunch and buy from them. And I think that kind of really opened a lot of people's eyes to the possibilities. And it was right as people were kind of looking for a use case for smart contracts. Ethereum had launched, but the first use case of Ethereum was just shitcoins, right? Which was, if you look at Counterparty, I mean, that was the first use case for Counterparty, and people weren't sure really what to do with what were smart contracts good for. And then it once the kind of idea of collectibles came out, then we saw like CryptoPunks come out, and this idea of NFTs really took hold, like in the Ethereum space too. And I think it's just it kind of, that kind of it all kind of like happens at once and then flows through all the different crypto communities. So that's why you see a lot of something will start within one community on one chain, and then just kind of like slowly seeps into everything else as that kind of like Cambrian explosion of like, here's this crazy new use case that we never considered before.
Yeah, you do see this with Bitcoin and Ethereum, where the culture and ideas really go back and forth. With Spells of Genesis, there's a lot of Ethereum references within some of the cards. With curio cards on Ethereum, there's a lot of Bitcoin references. And then when you go to ordinals, there's a lot of Ethereum, right? Copy passes, essentially just being put onto Bitcoin. Going back a little bit before we do dive in really hard into Pepe's, you had a handful of experiments or things that you were building prior to Rare Pepes, which sounds like it put you in a great position to know kind of how to act upon it, how to repurpose your wallet, and have that infrastructure in place so that Pepe's could succeed. For those builders or those who are like in the space, there's kind of this weird contentious feeling or air where users are afraid to go build because they're afraid of failing and then being labeled as a scammer or a serial rugger, when they're just honestly trying to build something or trying to find what their footing is within the space. As somebody who's a builder and has found success, what are your thoughts on that, and kind of like this evolving landscape of having of entrepreneurs or builders trying to go build something, and then if they fail, they end up just getting written off by everybody?
Well, I think there's a little bit of a distinction there in that anytime you're taking money for something, there's an expectation there, right? So nothing I've built did I like issue a token for or fundraise or anything like that. And that's kind of like, I'd say that's really the line there. Because if you kind of create this asset that you say, oh, this is, and that was really popular. I mean, so even 2013, I mean, that was like the master coin, the first ICO, like this idea of doing these fundraisers rather than prior to that, it was a pre-mine, right? It's like, cause they were all proof of work coins. And the founders would pre-mine X amount of coins before ever. I mean, it's really not that much different than an ICO. So I would say, if you're interested in building something, try as hard as you can to not create a token for it. Because no one's going to call you a scammer if you didn't take anybody's money and you were just trying to build something cool. Right. So, and I would say don't be discouraged if nobody uses it. I mean, I've built plenty of things that nobody cared about and nobody used. So you build it because you're interested in it. And if it's interesting enough to other people there, they'll use it. And it's kind of like, in a way, it's better, for it not to go kind of crazy right away. And you kind of like lose control and it's better to kind of start slow and build. I'm really happy the way, Rare Pepes went, and Rare Pepe Wallet, in that it was this kind of slow build, right? So I was still building out the wallet, and I had this kind of group of people in the Telegram chat that were all the beta testers, and I mean it was really like an on the fly thing. So, but it was a slow climb. It wasn't like I built it and then like issued a bunch of press releases and did a press tour and tried to get a bunch of people to use it. No, I really built it for myself, and then because I like to collect Rare Pepes. So, and then it was something that kind of everybody could use. And it's a great feeling as a developer when people want to use the thing that you built. Right. So, but once you get too many, then you could spend all day playing customer service, which is really not something anybody wants to do. So, I would say, yeah, don't issue a token. And I mean, obviously if that's what you want to do, that's what you're going to do. But, if you're just interested in building things, try to do it without taking money from people, because you will be much freer to really experiment and do whatever you want when there's no expectations. Because anytime anybody buys into an ICO or buys it, now they're an investor and they have an idea of how things should be, right? So you gotta, if you haven't taken it, like with Rare Pepe Wallet, if someone said it should do this, and I'm just like, no, I don't like that. Well, if I didn't take any money for it and I didn't raise token, I mean, who's anyone else to say like what it should be? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would say that's the big difference, and that's not anything new. I mean, that's kind of been how crypto's been the last 10 years. It's like it's the people that find themselves getting in trouble are the people that do a fundraise or do something like that. So yeah, that would be my advice to anybody building in space. Like that should be your very last option. Do it in your spare time. Do it because it's something you like to do. Don't do it because you're trying to get rich quick.
Yeah, and that's what everybody really wants, is to get rich quick. But it's really multiple years of building and trials and experiments, and then eventually something kind of hits. And then those who do hit it big generally fade out quite quickly. Everybody from people who are winning the lottery to one-hit wonders in the music industry, they all fade. It's probably the same as the main characters in crypto as well, right? You become that main character and you eventually fade out to begin with. I've now pulled up the Rare Pepe wallet, which is the wallet that was referenced, which is still in active use today. I would say the Rare Pepe wallet and Free Wallet seem to be like the two main ones for Counterparty itself. Now moving on to 2016, it was created. You created many of a handful of the first cards. I know this is all kind of like common knowledge, but for those who aren't familiar with you or maybe rolling over from different communities, as Pepes were forming or Rare Pepes were forming in this Telegram group, which still exists to this day, how did the community determine rules to be set in terms of card submissions or how the Council of Rare Pepe Scientists were created? Take us through that early probably whirlwind of a few months of really figuring it out of how this was going to be rolled out.
Yeah, so right in the beginning, Sean, who's another scientist, created a separate Telegram chat and just invited a handful of us in there, including Mike and the other scientists, about 6 or 7 people, and it was really the reason that we did it was because Mike created those Pepes, and then all of a sudden everybody else wanted to create their own Pepes, and I wanted to build a wallet, but if you remember at the time, Pepe was in a bit of controversy in the broader world, so we just needed to make sure that anything that was showing up in the wallet wasn't like highly offensive, and it was something like we liked making these things. We wanted it to succeed, and we knew if people started making like super offensive Pepes, it just wouldn't go anywhere. So it was really the impetus for that was just to kind of like be a filter. And Mike really did. I think I looked into it like the other day, and Mike curated like the first 1,000 Pepes or something. just by himself.
Wow.
And he would kind of like, if anything was borderline or questionable, he'd drop it in the Telegram chat or in the scientist chat, and we'd go over it. Or and then as far as like just kind of the different like things we came up with, like doing them in series, like having them in series, creating Pepe Cash, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that was really just this collaborative process within the scientist chat, but also in the main chat. I mean, a lot of the conversations that we would have would kind of, we'd have it in the main chat too. I mean, a couple hundred people. We're all just we're having a lot of fun in this bear market and creating Pepes. So yeah, I would say as far as like the rules, I mean, it was very much just like a spam filter. I mean, the rule, if you go to rarepepedirectory.com, which is actually like unchanged from like when Mike created it, it still has I think it still has the submission rules in there, and they're very much just like very simple, like keeping everything formatted correctly. So we have just the right resolution, so it shows up in the wallet correctly. But yeah, it wasn't, we wanted everyone to be able to participate. So there certainly wasn't like you didn't have to be a great artist. I mean, I create a bunch of Pepes and I'm not a great artist. So, yeah, really anybody, the fun thing about it was anybody could participate. And the thing with memes is like, you don't have to be a good artist. You just have to come up with a funny idea. And really anybody can do that. Like pretty much anyone can create funny memes. So some of my favorite Pepes are kind of like the shittiest as far as objectively good art. But they're just like really funny. Like Pepe Peanuts is still to this day like one of my like favorite Pepes, and it's like it really is like one of the stupidest Pepes there is. But yeah, so yeah, it was really just this like organic thing that we were just kind of figuring it out as we went. And it's funny now to see like new projects really like borrow a lot of the things that we did. Like separating things in the series, like doing series and like having these kind of like curatorial rules for things. And yeah, it's been funny because we like, I think it's almost better that we had like zero familiarity with like collectibles or the art world, and we were all just like coming up with ideas like that we thought might be funny. So it ended up being just like this really kind of fun moment in time. And it's like looking back on it, it was only 18 months, like from the opening of the directory to the closing of the directory was 18 months. So
wow.
We closed it in early 2018, and really like now to come back and look at a lot of the stuff, it's like that was, I mean, I think we actually hit the 5. Yeah, it would have been March 2018. So it's been over 5 years since the directory was closed. But I mean, we've seen all the kind of derivative projects that have come out since then, with fake rares and dank rares and Wojak Way and kind of all these other projects. But I think that the thing that I love about Pepe is that anybody can participate, and really, if like my suggestion to anybody looking to come into like at the NFT space at all is to like go into, I mean, Rare Pepe, the directory's closed, so you can't make a Rare Pepe now, but look at like fake rares, fake commons, or dank rares, or Wojak. There's a lot of these like directories that are still around that you can make stuff. And my suggestion is always like, don't go out and buy stuff right away. See what's out there and make your own, and like learn that way, because it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more satisfying. And then once you make your own, a lot of times it's easier to just trade with people. So you make your own Pepe, and then You can trade with other people, and it all revolves around these Telegram group chats, and which is kind of a funny thing because a lot of people that are really into NFTs are very familiar with like Discord, and that's kind of the place everybody goes in the ETH world. But in the Bitcoin counterparty world, Telegram is kind of the place everybody goes. So it is funny how that you even have that kind of like alternative in the NFT space now. So, but yeah, I think anybody getting into it, my suggestion is always to just make something, make your own thing. And that's the cool things with Pepe is they're just memes. So you don't have to be a great artist. You just have to have a funny idea.
Yeah, it is interesting. You see the difference between the social cultures of ETH and Bitcoin, where ETH, because it has smart contracts, most people are using Discord. They're using software that is takes a little bit more organization, a little bit more technical knowledge to possess. And then Bitcoin is just like very simple framework, from the single chats of Telegram to things like the Dank directory and free wallet, which is like, it's very straightforward to how you do things. Maybe it could have been just the lack of developers, which, we'll talk about later if everything that's happening with ordinals. But you did mention that, now there's a bunch of different derivatives. There's, fake rares, dank rares, fake commons. And then even now Pepe culture is kind of moving to ETH with notable Pepes. There's fake memes. Now you even have the Pepe coin, which has been done multiple times beforehand. So just wanted to notice that. How does it feel now sitting here? As we mentioned, we're now passing 5 years since the directory's closed, over 300 artists, 1,774 different cards, probably lots of different fun and craziness that's happened in between. That now this idea of Pepe art is pretty much now formalized and is accepted as like a digitally native type of art that doesn't seem to be going away and only seems to be growing. In crypto now, it seems like there's maybe 2 to 3 types of art that is crypto native, although Pepe's did come before. It's been growing now because people could probably profit off of it. You have like glitch art, pixel art, and Pepe art, all that existed again beforehand, but is now kind of like the de facto mediums for crypto art to kind of populate and flourish. How does that feel sitting on your end now as being one of those huge curators, or right, people call you the godfather of Pepe's, of building something so significant that now it's like at breakaway speed and cannot be controlled in any way?
Yeah, it's fun. The kind of what allowed me to go full time in crypto was working with the Pepe WTF Pepe Pawn Shop crew, and Vincent Van Doe and those guys, and they've really kind of really looked at and seen Pepe as this art movement, which is really what it is, and wanted to build that out. And so it's like this thing that I created as like, or I'd say Mike created, and then I helped build out, really like has allowed me now to do crypto full time. So that's great from that perspective. It is surreal in a lot of ways, like this this kind of movement and combination of like this Pepe meme that had been around for years prior to like Rare Pepes, and it's like the internet culture around that, and then crypto, and this kind of merging of like just cultures in general, and then like the art world, and seeing like the Pepe sell for millions of dollars at Sotheby's and like stuff like that. It is crazy. It's objectively ridiculous that's the world we live in. But it's I think what it represents is like this kind of new these kind of like new economies where like people can be creative, people that maybe wouldn't think of themselves as an artist or someone that's creative. Like personally, I don't think of myself as an artist, or like I'm an engineer. That's always been my identity. And so to now be like like within this kind of like art crypto like mashup world is really interesting and not anything I ever expected. But I do think it is an art movement. I mean, it's something that's kind of captured a lot of people's imagination, and it's a very low barrier to entry for really anybody to get into. And I think that's another thing that's really unique with Pepe's and these kind of derivative projects, kind of what you were talking about, the fake rares, fake commons, dank rares, Wojaks, and it's really it's a very open kind of community you can just come into and start creating, and everyone's very supportive, and it's very I see it's a very different from a lot of the like NFT, like classic kind of like PFP communities where the collectors are just that. They're just collectors. They're not also creators. So I think that's the big difference when it comes to the like Rare Pepes and all the derivative projects that have followed it, is that the collectors are the creators. Like the biggest collectors are also making Pepes too, you know? So it's like, it's this community where you're actively involved in, and you're not just like looking at your collection and watching like the way the price moves. Like you can create your own like new Pepes, and you can create your own like stuff like that. And then once you create stuff, you can trade. There's a lot of trading that goes on as opposed to just like buying and selling. So I think that unique property, I think, is what's allowed it to like continue to grow, but at like a sustainable pace. So it's not like a lot of these things, you see this kind of like parabolic growth and then these like massive fall off a few months later. You don't see that in like Pepe's and these communities. Obviously, like prices have shifted from like bear to bull market, but as far as like active participants, it's only grown really over time. So I think it's a much more sustainable, healthy growth. And I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's you could spend no money. Like you could be involved in Pepe's and spend nothing, or spend just this minimal amount in fees to create your own stuff. So I think that's one of the things that's really unique about it, separate of every other kind of NFT community. And what really has kept me interested in it all these years is that I see it as like this kind of spillover of, and I'm sure you probably see it just as someone that's into crypto, like when you see the bull markets come up, you see the spillover of crypto into like your normal life, right? It's like people that you know, not unrelated to crypto, will like bring something up or talk about something that's like, what, you know about that? Or and I've seen it with just like my friends outside of crypto that have like found their way into like the Pepe communities and started like making their own Pepes and stuff. And it's just a lot of fun. It's a nice kind of like break from the rat race, let's say, and it allows you to be creative and like make jokes and like hang out with your internet friends in a way that you're not just like looking at the price of things and talking about that kind of stuff. So I think it's here to stay. I mean, it's survived multiple cycles now at this point. And I don't see people going away. I mean, it's just, it's this kind of fun thing that just more and more people are kind of getting involved with over time.
Yeah. When you look at the top two, I guess, most culturally relevant NFT projects, quote unquote, most are referencing generally CryptoPunks and Rare Pepes as kind of the two. And it's because the communities didn't die during the bear market. And so, you know, you guys are here, you guys built other projects outside, and you're, excuse me, still here to share that story. But now as it's closed, it's been 5 years, the crypto space has changed dramatically. cross chain is becoming more of a future, whether it felt like that was going to happen back then when Ethereum was just an ICO machine and there really wasn't much utility outside of that, trading shitcoins. How do you view the kind of the future of Rare Pepes? Is it something that's going to be integrated into multiple chains and multiple protocols? How does Rare Pepes tend to reach the quote unquote normie hands? Because as far as we've seen so far, trading on the counterparty's X is quite difficult, even for somebody who's a crypto native. Where does Rare Pepes go from here?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like, because I sometimes will say Pepes or sometimes we'll say Rare Pepes. So I think that there's a distinction there, right? It's so Rare Pepes is the project that from late 2016 to early 2018. That's the Rare Pepe directory and the 1,774 Pepes, and so that's completed. It's this set, right? So, but Pepe, the idea, and I kind of call all NFTs Pepes. It, like, not Rare Pepes, right? Those are specific ones, but just Pepes in general. And I think as far as like the Pepe meme and Pepe, you can't really control it. And you wouldn't even want to try, right? You can't. It's this, like, it's symbolic. It's not under the control of any one person. But what you can do is you can kind of build things that use that symbolism and that kind of motif and stuff. So that's like what we've been trying to build with at Pepe Inc, which is Pepe WTF and the pawn shop, doing the notable Pepes on Ethereum. And I think it's just an inevitability that it kind of crosses into all these other chains and things within the crypto ecosystem. But then we can kind of like instill the kind of values of Rare Pepes kind of within that. So while we certainly don't control anything Pepe, we can kind of have our own like value set and follow this like kind of this community oriented approach that we did with Rare Pepes, using the Pepe motif, right? So and I think it's been pretty successful. I mean, it's brought a lot of people in, it's brought new artists in, kind of try to keep things interesting. It was nice to see like Matt Fury come into NFTs, and he got to kind of see the kind of cool technology that this enabled and the ability to kind of like sell your art in a digital way. And he was like nice enough to come in and claim his Pepe. I mean, we saved a Rare Pepe for him, and that's the feels good man card. And then he's been doing his own thing, and so it's like it's great to see that like this Pepe, this idea of Pepe kind of flourish in a positive way. Because I mean, so many people in like the mainstream had seen Pepe in a negative light for years, and I do think that it's kind of coming around, in that people see it really as just this kind of like symbol of just like freedom and individual, like it's kind of can mean anything to anyone. This frog meme that's kind of like taken over the internet in a way, like the Mickey Mouse of the internet. It's really like the symbol. So it's like to see the like this Pepe coin. That's, I mean, what is it? It's like it's a little over 2 weeks old and hit something like $600 million market cap or something. I mean, that's another thing. Like when we were talking about earlier, like timing wise, it's like, I think that it just like hit the nail on the head as far as timing. In a land of illiquid NFTs, in comes this liquid shitcoin that's got a picture of Pepe on it, and everyone's making memes for it. So why not jump in and play with that, you know? So yeah, I think on in the Rare Pepe days, we would, we being like early collectors, scientists and stuff, were very protective over, like, we're the real Rare Pepes. Those aren't the real Rare Pepe. But that was a different time, let's say. And I think now it's just, you curate what you can, you kind of, create the space, the space and the community kind of like, let's say community spaces that you can, and you kind of create your own curation and stuff, and then the world happens around you, right? And then you kind of react to everything else that happens. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like the Pepe meme is just like, now it's captured everyone in this shitcoin that could, like, who knows where that's going to go, right? So and then who knows what's going to happen a month or two from now. I mean, it's like there's been, even in a bear market, like anyone I've talked to, like, this is the weirdest bear market I've ever been in, and the multiple crypto cycles that I've been through now. Just like this really wacky things going on. And so yeah, I think as far as Pepe goes, it's more of an idea and this like motif, and then you kind of can build around that, kind of how you see it. And I mean, me and a lot of the other like scientists and then the like bigger collectors kind of have this kind of idea of how the Pepe community should be, and then we kind of just like, it's like lead by example, right? And so if we kind of embody those values and stuff, and then it's easier for everybody else to come in and just have a great space to really enjoy being creative and making funny memes.
Right. Yeah, it could completely make sense. One of my favorite dark farm cards is one where it says "Old Pepes yell at new Pepes," and it's like a spinoff from the Simpsons. And that was kind of the case you see now. But from your framing, the idea is now moving from the old guard not protecting Pepe in a sense, but making sure that the right principles and values are instilled as the culture migrates to all of these different chains or different protocols, different types of tokens, etc., which makes complete sense because as crypto grows, you said this is a weird bear market because there's so many builders in the space now compared to 2018 when I was here. It felt like everything was dead. It felt like there was like nothing. Everyone kind of just like walked away for some years. Pepe, I had tweeted this recently, has gone through multiple kind of hype cycles over the last 5 months. At the beginning, it felt like it was all about like one of one Pepe art. And then it moved into this like notable Pepe's fake memes, new collections on Ethereum. And now you have the fungible token of Pepe, and it just completely just takes form and just gets wrapped up into different types of tokens and mechanisms along the way. But during this during this bear market over the last 5 months, a new protocol's popped up on Bitcoin, ordinals. You were very early to it, right? You have your bricks. You have talked about it, and you've also introduced some new ideas as well of how Counterparty, which is what Rare Pepes was built on, can integrate into ordinals. I believe you've done one already where you could take the image data and put it into Counterparty. I know you have some more forward-thinking ideas of putting Counterparty token into an ordinal envelope. As somebody who's now, right, as a tinkerer, first as ordinals was growing, I guess it's inscribed like sub 1,000, but when you'd first come across it and open to it, how do you think ordinals will have an impact on Pepe's moving forward and just the overall Bitcoin ecosystem as we kind of forwardly look into like maybe some of the new technologies that will spin up on top of ordinals?
Yeah, I mean, as far as Rare Pepes and the other Pepes that live on Counterparty, which is on Bitcoin, I think ordinals is an extremely positive development. I mean, it's the more people that build on Bitcoin, the more likely it is to continue to exist for years to come. So One of the things I try to do is think, where will this be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? And I see ordinals as it's a different protocol than Counterparty, but both of them use Bitcoin. So there's really no reason that they can't be used in tandem. And I think it only helps Counterparty. I think I'd love to see, and I think it'll happen in the next year or two, Counterparty integrate ordinals into its stack, so you can use kind of use both of them at once. And kind of the cool thing with that is just like Bitcoin doesn't need to be aware of Counterparty for Counterparty to work, ordinals doesn't need to be aware of Counterparty for them to be able to integrate. So I think it's very positive. I think it just getting more people looking at Bitcoin as a platform rather than just a commodity or currency, because it is an open network, right? And it's got a rule set, but as long as you're following those rules, you can do interesting things, which I think that's one of the things we're seeing now with the trustless computer BRC20 stuff. Is it leverages the fact that ordinals created this method for storing large amounts of data in a Bitcoin transaction. So why not use that data to power a virtual machine, that like an EVM essentially? And so that's not a new idea. There's actually an EVM built in Counterparty that was never released back in early 2016. So the idea was certainly there, and I think it wouldn't have been. It wasn't the time to release it in 2016. So I don't look back at that and say, oh, I wish we would have done different. I think at the time the right decisions were made. And so now you see these other kind of use cases and stuff built on top of this just new method for storing data. I mean, that's really what Counterparty did for years. It utilized multiple ways to just store arbitrary data, not arbitrary to people running Counterparty, but arbitrary to Bitcoin users and miners in transactions, and then interpreting that as something else, either interpreting that as Counterparty data or interpreting that as an inscription, interpreting that as smart contract, right? So yeah, I think it's an iteration that has to happen. We have to go through it. We have to see what the pain points are. We have to, Bitcoin has to evolve, right? You see kind of crypto in general. I mean, it evolves at like breakneck pace. Like once you feel like you've got a handle on things, all of a sudden this new thing comes out that you got to learn and try to figure out real quick, so you can kind of like start using it. It's all very positive. And I think that one of the funny things with ordinals is a lot of the, like, right when ordinals launched, a lot of the people that saw it and kind of saw what it could be were Counterparty users. And so a lot of like early inscriptions were created, like sub 100, there's Rare Pepes being inscribed on chain, right? So it's like some of the very earliest inscriptions were Rare Pepes. So it makes sense, right? Because we're Counterparty, anybody into Counterparty understood, oh, this is just another platform on top of Bitcoin that utilizes Bitcoin in a creative way to create tokens or things that aren't Bitcoin. Well, in the case of ordinals, they are, in a way, like a single Satoshi, right? So yeah, it's just this evolution, and so it was something that I certainly wasn't expecting, people to go back to Bitcoin. But that always does kind of happen in bear markets. There's kind of like this flight to safety in a way. When everything comes crashing down, everyone goes back to like the daddy of all cryptos and back to Bitcoin and kind of flee to the safety of Bitcoin. So yeah, it does make a lot of sense. I think if we want Bitcoin to continue to exist, and we have to find other ways to use it, because as kind of the block subsidy goes down, and we need to incentivize people to keep mining and making sure the network is stable. And so any other use case we can come up with that people have to pay fees to use it, I think is a good thing. So it's just, you got it. That one of the things I say in crypto, you got to be open. You've got to be open to new ideas, and you got to be open to changing your mind, really, like on the fly, and really just consider things for what they are, and don't immediately snub anything. Obviously, there's a lot of scams in the space too, and you got to be able to sniff those out. But when things come along, like, you need to do a little bit of due diligence and kind of look and see what they are, rather than just immediately dismissing something. And that was, I'd say, a mistake that I made early on. I dismissed a lot of things on Ethereum early on. I remember we had one of the Rare Pepe collectors came into the chat in spring 2017 and said, "Hey, there's these cool things, CryptoPunks. You can claim them; they're free." And everyone's like, fuck that, Ethereum garbage, you know? And like, so, yeah, I mean, you gotta be open to having your worldview shifted, kind of on a day-to-day basis. So, that was one of the funny things, I think, with this Pepe coin. I think a lot of the like gut reaction is to be like, "Oh, I don't like that because we didn't make it." Well, it's like, I don't really want to I don't want to be responsible for that, you know? So, it's like, you got to look at it for what it is. Oh, this is this like funny thing people are into, and just let's watch it evolve and make funny memes with it as it goes, and kind of just see what happens. So, same thing with kind of doing the notable Pepes and having Pepes on Ethereum. Like, I think it's just like a lot of the collectors now of Rare Pepes also collect things on Ethereum. I mean, it makes sense to also have this kind of directory style curated collection of Pepes on Ethereum. So I think it's the days of the I'd say the overprotective of things and not liking any new things are kind of fading in a way. I mean, it's like there is certainly, and it's like kind of caveat everything with, like, there are a lot of scammy things in crypto, because it's open. I mean, anybody can come in and do whatever they want. So you kind of got to develop. That's something you got to learn really trial by fire. I mean, you got to just kind of get scammed a couple times, scam yourself a couple times, and that's really the only way you'll ever learn.
Oh yeah, we've all been there. I think we've learned that if the maximalist take on anything, whether it's a specific token, a specific blockchain, or philosophy, tends to age very poorly, especially in this space with the rapid development. But as we close this out, we're talking about changing perspectives. One of the quotes that you've kind of immortalized, it's even in your Twitter bio, is this idea of token is the art. And I'm curious now, as you've dabbled with Ethereum and with ordinals, the token of the art was the expression, kind of began as counterparty and maybe some of the limitations that existed with it at the time. Do you still hold that value true? And then also, how is that, and if so, or if it's changed, how, since you began to dabble in some of these other technologies?
Yeah, no, I'm still very adamant that the token is the art. And I think that really came out of, I mean, what is an NFT is like the hardest thing. I mean, I don't even like the term NFT. That's why I just call everything Pepe. It's like, what is a Pepe, right? It's like everyone's got their own definition. Everybody's got, but at the end of the day, it's a token, right? It's like, yeah, it could have a picture, and that's maybe you like the picture and that's why you bought the token, but you still bought the token. You didn't really buy the picture, right? And I think that's the mistake a lot of people make in trying to understand it. And that's the whole like, well, I can just right click save. It's like I can go to like any website and right click save the picture. I mean, that's clearly not, like, nobody's arguing that you can't do that. Like, that would be a ridiculous argument. And then the other idea in that, well, what are you buying? Oh, I'm buying like the commercial rights to this thing, or I'm buying like the whatever to like what this is. And it's like, no, really, all you're buying is the token, and whatever is imbued onto that by the person who minted it or issued it, or whatever term you want to created it, that's on them. That they can they can say anything they want on top of that. But now and really, I think really the point that I try to drive home is that we use crypto because it's permissionless, right? Like, I buy a token, no one can tell me I can't sell that. No one can tell me I can't send it anywhere. I mean, obviously, if your smart contract says you can't do that, and so not all tokens are created equally. But let's say in the purest form of the token, you can do anything you want with it. There's no, but all those other things like, oh, this gives me like commercial rights to it, or gives it. Now you're bringing real world things and applying them to this token. It's like, that's, we could do that for years. This is not, the token doesn't make these things possible. You could sell commercial rights prior to crypto existing, right? But it's this permissionless token that you can send around that looks like something. Well, what does it look like? It looks like the image, right? And so it's like this it kind of flips the common, oh, here's the image, and the like the token represents the image, and it's like, well, but, or let me see, let me make sure I get this right. Yeah, it's not you're not buying the image, you're buying the token. So it's, the reason I just say that all the time is because you get in these like weird circular arguments with people and what an NFT is, and the T is token. Like, that's literally what an NFT is, a token. I mean, by pure definition, I mean that's what you're buying, a token, and then the image is just what it looks like, or the media associated is just what it looks like. And so that's another reason why I'm not like as far as like ordinals and inscriptions, I think it's cool. Like, it's cool to keep that stuff on chain. It's like, people certainly value that, but I don't see it as a necessity. And I think that's one of the things I love about Rare Pepes is there's not even like, the tokens don't even have any reference to the image. You just have to know what they look like. You know, it's like, so it's very kind of like removed from that. You really are just buying the token when you trade Rare Pepes. So yeah, it's just a way of thinking, in that, like, that's what you are doing from the most literal sense of what you're doing. And I think we get away from that, and when explaining what these are, and explaining what everything is, and it's like, obviously, like, what the token looks like is important to whether you want to buy it, right? So saying the token is the art doesn't mean it doesn't matter what it looks like. Obviously, it matters, right? But it's really no different from like when like getting into crypto in 2013. Like, what does Bitcoin look like? Oh, it looks like this white B on this orange background. What does Litecoin look like? Oh, it looks like this silver L on this silver coin. You know, what does Ethereum look like? Oh, it looks like this black diamond thing, you know? So it's really not that far removed from what we've always been doing. Like, and we don't say, oh, I'm buying black diamonds, or I'm buying like orange circles with bees on them. You know, no, I'm buying the coins. I'm buying the tokens. So just take that. Really, all the token is the art is saying is like, take that idea and just shift it on to these user created assets. And it's really not. That's what we've been doing prior to NFTs, and it's what NFTs are at the end of the day. So anything outside of that is that's us applying these attributes to these tokens. But at the end of the day, it's just a token. That's what do you have in your wallet? It's a token, and you can save the image on your computer so you don't lose it, or you can like run an IPFS node to keep your image up, or you can just hope that it's there when you go to look at it the next day. But even if the image isn't there, you still have the token. So yeah, I mean, it's really just it's a phrase that I've said multiple times just to try to like drive home to people, like that is what it is. Like that's what we're doing. We're trading tokens. We're not.
Yeah.
Anything above that is, yeah, sure. Tokens look a certain way, but that we're just trading tokens at the end of the day.
It'll be interesting to see how that develops over time. There's a few court cases have had to make a ruling on something tangentially related to that. And it seems like they're more focused on the art and the trademark and the IP more than the token itself. Right. The Kevin McCoy one, they basically threw out the case, said we don't want to define what ownership is. And then the Bored Ape and Ryder Rips one, they basically said the similar thing. We're not interested in what the token is. We're interested in what the art is. But the crypto community has a completely different take on it. So it'll be interesting to see how the traditional world and the crypto world intermingle with those philosophies over time.
I think that's actually a good example, because what did the courts determine whatever they determined, right? But that's outside of on-chain public network, right? But do those tokens still exist?
Yep. Yeah.
Sure. And you can trade them regardless of what the court says. Those tokens still exist and they can still be sent around. So like that, and that's the thing. So it's trying to imbue these other characteristics on top of it, is where you get in trouble. I mean, I think that court case was really, at least with the McCoy one, it was saying, well, this isn't my art, this is my art, right? But at the end of the day, there's two things still. There's still two things, and you're just saying that that one thing isn't your thing, but it's still there. So it's up to collectors and anyone else to really determine. The court can say whatever they want. I almost think it adds more value to it at the end of the day, because it just kind of like adds to the story of it. But the token is still there. So the same, like that like Ryder Rip stuff, didn't he make a bunch of like Bored Apes that were basically just like copy minted or whatever? It's like literally the same exact picture. Yep. It's like, well, if those tokens are still there, I mean, who really cares? I mean, now are they worth less or more now? I don't know. Will they be worth less or more in 5 years when we tell the story about? I mean, maybe that'll add value to them. It's like you never know, right? How that'll turn out. But yeah, it's still the on-chain thing is still there. It's just those characteristics that we've tried to apply to it from off-chain that's where the kind of controversy lays.
Yeah. Maybe they'll become historical NFTs of trademark infringement. It'd be funny to kind of look back at that. But Joe, appreciate you for doing this, man. Always a good time talking with you. Brilliant mind, the curator of the Pepe culture. Excited to see what happens next. I know we were in communication from the Emblem side with you a lot of things to look forward to, and appreciate you for sharing your time with us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys for listening and watching. We'll catch you next time.